So today's video is about stress, and that's the easy answer for why everyone feels what they do. I'm stressed, I have stress, my body's under stress, and you need something for stress. And I think that word becomes a catchphrase because we don't know what else to call it. So it's kind of like an umbrella term, and then its like true meaning and its true impact gets watered down because everyone's got stress. I mean, you can't make stress go away. Can't pay their bills for them. So what does it fly away here? What does stress actually mean and how does it impact the body? So we know that we have a stress response and our body produces stress hormones. And I think the simplest way to go at it is like, what if your body stops producing or is underproducing stress hormones? Is that a condition? Yes, that's a condition. Is it a diagnosable condition? Technically not in the beginning, because a lot of times we're not measuring the markers for stress, or at least acute stress. Now, in a roundabout way, if stress gets to the point where it's damaging, you'll have organ dysfunction. Someone can have a heart attack from being under a lot of stress. So if you go to the hospital, you have symptoms of a heart attack. You don't necessarily have symptoms of stress they're not relevant at this point because, obviously it's life over death, right? Life over limb. I don't know, whatever. But before you get to that point, what I call the preclinical presentation, and when stress is getting to the point where you're starting to see changes, you're starting to feel different. And a lot of people, they'll be like, but I was always able to, go all night and I didn't need to sleep and I had to study or I had to work. I just have a coffee in the morning. I'd be good for the rest of the day. But ever since whatever point, I just can't do it anymore. That's correct because you shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. Doing all-nighters, it's damaging to your body. We obviously need to sleep. And people think that it's like an endless bucket, that they can just keep going and I can do it, I'm used to it, but now it's bothering me. Why is it bothering me now? Well, you got to think of your body kind of like, I always like using the video game example. Like if you're playing Street Fighter and then like in the bottom here, maybe, or if you're playing the other controller too, your little brother, you play here. Your energy bar, every time you get hit, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you die. So think of your stress response like that energy bar. And it's not an endless supply. And the idea that I'm trying to promote is recovery and healing, sleep, nutrition, lower energy states that allows your stress response to replenish close to 100%, like your cell phone battery. That's the other good example I use. Is if you don't plug in your phone at night, you wake up, it's at 40% when you wake up, by noon it's practically dead. And our stress response, maybe you even call it just the adrenal gland, is similar. When you sleep and you've got good nutrition, your adrenal gland and your stress response refills itself so that when you wake up in the morning, you get a nice boost of cortisol to wake you up. And that kind of replaces the need for coffee, as I have my coffee here. But over time, your stress response can take hits and not bounce back effectively. And people get to the point where they have some burnout or they start feeling like they get sick often, or they don't recover from things easily, or all sorts of even just brain fog or energy crashes in the afternoon. So they think I'm just getting old, or I've been I had one bad night and then it kind of threw me off for the rest of the week. These are all signs that your adrenal gland is in an exhausted state. It requires nutrition, supplementation, and maybe a lifestyle adjustment so that you can replenish that adrenal gland, so that your stress hormones can self-correct and get to the point where they're producing the right amount at the right time. Now, another symptom of stress and exhaustion is a paradoxical second wind that people will get in the evening. So a lot of people will be like, I'm tired. If I put my head down on the pillow, I will conk out. However, I wake up often. I'm a very light sleeper. Or they'll be like, after dinner, I just feel like doing all kind of like housework, office work, computer work. 12 o'clock, I'm not tired. I just get like another wind. This is what I call the paradoxical cortisol rise. Because cortisol is supposed to be high in the morning when you wake up and drop off throughout the day and kind of go to a low point in the evening when your body's getting this sensation of like fatigue and sleep at the appropriate time. And then overnight, it starts creeping back up to kind of give you that nice big spike in the morning that kind of alerts the body to, wake up, get going. When you have that paradoxical rise, your poor sleep, your poor adrenal function, you don't get that morning cortisol rise. So you feel tired, you feel sluggish, you don't feel like getting up in the morning. You need stimulants. And then you'll also see that in the evening, you get that cortisol rise when you're not supposed to in the evening. And that's what's accounting for this overstimulation, a busy mind, difficulty getting into a deep sleep, a restorative sleep. So then it works against you because then when overnight your brain is half on watching movies, and when you wake up, you feel like you haven't slept at all. So I usually there's a couple supplements that I would give for that. Ashwagandha-based formulas are usually pretty good to rebalance the adrenal gland so you get a morning rise and to ensure that you don't get an evening spike. Let's see. Weight gain. Sometimes, when someone's gaining weight, they're like, I think it's my thyroid. And the truth is, it's usually initially not your thyroid. I usually say your thyroid is sort of like your backup energy power plant, but your adrenal gland is your primary. So when the adrenal gland is starting to shut down, the thyroid upregulates its function and tries to compensate, but it's not as hardy. So it goes into a failure much faster, to the point where some people, their thyroid just is kaput. They need to be meds for life because the gland itself just could not maintain the increased activity to compensate. So the weight gain is something that's a sign of stress and cortisol, especially abdominal, like waistband around the hips and the meat around just above the where the pants sit. That's cortisol weight. And the other thing that goes along with it is blood sugar regulation. So when you're stressed out, you don't have energy. You start craving things that give you quick energy. So coffee, sugar, simple carbs. And so you'll get a little mini burst, and then with the insulin response and a crash right afterwards. So that excess carb is coming in, your body's seeing it, insulin resistance starts to occur, you start gaining weight. So another sign of exhaustion, adrenal fatigue, adrenal overusage. So my easy fix for those is usually a tonic type of supplement, which is ashwagandha based typically. Sometimes I also do nervines, which are herbs that kind of quiet the mind, relax you, bring down this excess state of stress so that you don't feel like you're in red alert all the time. It'll also enhance sleep. I think that's a good place to start. And I usually do something for blood sugar regulation just to kind of work in the background, bring down the weight, and ensure that your energy levels are stable. Because really that's what we're dealing with throughout the day is our ability to handle stress and have the energy for the tasks that we have in front of us. So our body's always looking for this fuel source, whether it's blood sugar or adrenal function or hormones, whatever it is. We have to make sure that our body's got the resources to produce them appropriately. Because if we have a state of chronic stress, our nervous system is going to be on red alert and we're going to burn through our resources way too quickly. That's Adrenal fatigue in a nutshell.